People who got fired on the first day of the job. What happened? Not me. But happened when I was working at McDonald's. New guy came in and when he saw that we were trashing patties if they had been sitting too long, he ate one. Then he started just eating them from the supply. Dude must have inhaled 10-12 patties over a couple hours after repeatedly being told to stop. Eventually, he started making himself a burger with the buns and eating it as well. Got fired first day on the job. I'm still convinced he had no real plans of working and just wanted to see how many free burgers he could eat before getting canned. Got hired. Day 1 after orientation. Got desk set up. Boss walked in and told us this branch was closing. Don's come tomorrow. Got 2 months severance pay. Janitor job at a hospital. Cleaning bathrooms and the patient's rooms. An old lady laying in her bed called me over and said she was born in Germany and she'd learned to speak English but couldn't read it very well. She had a get well card from someone and asked me to read the poem inside. I did. Someone reported me because I wasn't supposed to interact with patients. Got fired before lunch. They called me and told me I was let go for not showing up on my first day. Which was a surprise for me since at no point after the interview had I been told that I'd been hired. Put unleaded gas into a diesel truck. I did this to my mother-in-law's Jeep. I then spent an entire day pumping the gas out of the tank with the shittiest hand pump ever made. You should learn how to siphon and gravity would have done all the work for you. I'm a developer. We hired a guy who did an amazing interview. He really seemed to know his stuff and was clearly very intelligent and capable. On his first day he saw some old code in a HTTP legacy app which wasn't great and he went freaking up HT. Began ranting at his desk. Then stood up from his desk and started shouting at his screen. Then started verbally abusing the developer he thought had written the code. He hadn't. The other developer just sat and took the abuse calmly and tried to explain it wasn't his code. And anyway, we knew it was old and poorly written, but there was no plan for the team to rebuild it, etc. But it was futile and he barely got a word in with the other guy just shouting him down in an endless tirade. He had a full meltdown and was beyond civilized conversation. Project manager had to intervene and have an emergency meeting with the MD and the developer. They mutually agreed he wasn't right for the company. The guy eventually said he had Asperger's and had left many jobs for the same reason. I got a seizure while serving someone at a new restaurant. It was my first of a 3-day trial period, so I don't think I was technically on the books yet. Needless to say, they never called me back. Failed the mandatory new hire drug test. I've never done drugs. This happened to my wife. She had never smoked weed. And they gave her a lie detector test which said she lied about smoking weed. Edit. Okay. My wife just woke up. It was in 1986 in Buffalo. And it was for working in a liquor store. She was a teenager. And she also told me that she got the freaking job. Lol. Lie detectors are absolute bullshit. They do not work. All they are capable of measuring is your sweat and heartbeat. It is not a magic machine which can tell if you are lying or not. Google it if you wish. Used to work at a factory that made food stuff. Guy I was trained with fell into a big vat of wet ingredients that was about to be heated up. Had I not looked behind me, he would have died. The boss went to the hospital to tell him he was fired, but they were giving him some extra pay in his check. How does a workplace accident mean you get fired? Likely depends on how exactly he managed to wind up in the vat. Not me, but there's a story on Reddit about a teenage kid who got fired on his first day of work at the supermarket for eating all the skin off the rotisserie chickens. Just started a new job and a guy on my training group on the first day started offering people LSD. He didn't have a second day. I was 16 and landed my first job in a paint store mixing custom colors for customers. On my first day, I mixed a requested color, following the paint manufacturer's directions exactly. But the result turned out wrong because the formula had changed and my employer had not updated his store's formula specifications. So when the customer complained about the color variance, the boss fired me in front of everyone, even though I had done the job correctly. It was humiliating and left a lasting negative impression as to what's involved in joining the workplace. I was a hostess at Applebee's for a day once. I was bussing a table and dropped a cup and whispered, "Sh-t." They never even told me that they fired me. I found out by going into work the next day to see me not on the schedule. I tried to talk to managers and everything, no one would tell me that I was fired. It was like a bad breakup with mind games, and eventually I had to force myself into the GM's office and made him explain to me what was going on. Shadiest sh-t ever. I got a job as a waiter at an Australian themed steakhouse. No, not that one. They had me buy construction boots as part of their uniform and a pair of black shorts totaling $50. I had never worked as a waiter before, so they had me shadow one of their waitresses. I followed her for drink orders at 2 tables and then she told the boss it wasn't going to work out. No idea what happened. And that was my last $50. In retrospect, that place just screams, "You don't want to work here." But I'm still mad about it a decade and a half later. Lost balance of the serving tray and spilled hot soup all over the owner. The owner needs to friggin' realize that first day mistakes are first day mistakes. I once dropped 2 armfuls of plates in front of the regional manager because a customer was trying to play a joke on me. You know what the regional manager did? Helped clean up the mess. I got hired as an independent contractor for some over the phone tech work. Hours were 8 AM to 6 PM. Okay. That's perfect. I go in and get acquainted. Start taking calls. And hours go by. I'm wondering when I get lunch. Newsflash. No lunch. No breaks. Independent contractor or not. Pretty sure here in the US, you gotta give people some breaks and a lunch at some point in a 10-hour shift. Some kinda law about that, I feel sure. So I tell my new boss, "Look, I'm starving. I'm going to get something to eat. I'll be back in an hour." He said, "If you leave, don't bother coming back." So I left and never went back. I got a job at a daycare cooking food. I ended up getting strep throat prior to my first day. They fired me after I told them I couldn't come in because I was contagious. Worked at Pita Pit in college for a day. About halfway through my first shift, the manager asks if I have a car. I said yes. Why? He said I had to go get it and deliver for him till close because the driver he was into called out because she was too hungover. She said this on speaker in front of like half of the people waiting in line and everyone else who was working. If I didn't, he said I was fired. He also told me I had to pay for my own gas and give all tips to him since I was still making $8.20 an hour instead of the $4.50 the drivers made plus tips. He handed me 7 bags and a list of MapQuest directions to them. 3 of the deliveries 10 plus miles away, furthest being 17 miles in the middle of fricking nowhere, Pennsylvania. That just screamed deliverance up a scene. Boss called me not even 15 minutes later screaming at me for not making all of the deliveries yet and said that once I came back and gave him his tips, I was fired. With 5 deliveries left to go, I said, "Frick it," and went to my friend's place with the rest of the food. Frick that manager. I don't know if this counts, but my dad was interviewed for a job at a Dallas engineering firm in the 60s. They were up in Detroit. Did a bunch of bulk interviews. Processed offers on the spot. He was well qualified. It was a good offer. He gave notice at his current job at GM and packed the family up and drove down. When he showed up on the first day, they met him and said, "Well, the guys in engineering decided they didn't want to work with any non-white engineers and they were supposed to call you 2 weeks ago and withdraw the offer." Oot me, but I was working at the time. ODIRSIS had worked at a Panera when IW letter FS in college as a shift supervisor. W letter FAQ we're looking for a new prep guy letter FND my manager interviewed this guy in Tennessee. No joke, I told my manager I didn't like him and not to allow him but he did anyway. His first D letter FY he shows up and we give him some dining on what to do and he gets to Wadrook. After about 4 hours my manager letter SSKS if he can take a minute out to IQ to grab a new box of chips. Out letter FENF nowhere the guy snaps and says, doubt you don't know me. I'm from the God. My manager. Without skipping letter F beat says, comma. Yeah and I'm from management. Leave. Fired him on the spot. I showed up and the guy that was supposed to train me got fired. No one else was available to train me apparently. So they told me I was no longer needed. I was too young to put up a fight. Or ask for any alternatives. Not me but a young girl we hired based on a manager recommendation. It was a software developer job. First day. I started giving her some knowledge about the system. Every time I say something she would ask what's that? Like. Here we use XML or JSON. Comma. Okay what are those? I will explain then proceed to say. And we use Java here and PHP here. Comma. I'm sorry what are these now? I told that manager if she comes tomorrow he will have to fire her himself. She didn't. Snowed 3 feet. Couldn't get out of my driveway. Called the new boss. Told me not to ever bother coming in.